Okay.
Hello.
Hi, Oak. How are you?
Hello. So good to see you again.
We're going to be talking to your friends who love to listen to everything that you say.
More
I'm
so
very
you.
lucky to have that.
They really love you, actually. So let's get
Hey,
into
love,
this.
there's plenty of love to go around. Anyway, today, we started talking, I think it was in episode 11, about the climate crisis and everything like that. And we got into some of the survival type things that people could use to help themselves to stay safe or to stay healthy and that type of thing. And I wanted to talk about homeopathy today because I am a homeopath
For how long now?
since the 1980s. I have a diplomat of homeopathic medicine through Britain, through the UK. I'm allowed to practice in all of the UK countries around the world, which includes Australia, New Zealand, and a whole bunch more that I can't remember besides Britain. But anyway, homeopathy, just for your audience, is the number two most used medicine in the world. Think about that. Most people have never heard of homeopathic medicine here in the United States. But from about the time that the Puritans landed at Plymouth Rock to about 1910, homeopathy was the number one medical medicine for the United States. And nobody knows that. This is history. And in 1910, the traditional medical, the AMA took over. They were far more political than the homeopaths were. And eventually, homeopathy took a back seat to what the AMA was doing. And we call that traditional medicine. We refer to what we do as homeopathic medicine because they're very different. And anyhow, the homeopathic, what I like about it is that it does not have any adverse side effects. In other words, it can't kill you at its worst, okay? And I'm sure today there's enough people out there who are on traditional medications through prescription drugs. And if you have to take a pill or pills, you have this really long readout that comes with it that has all the precautions and the adverse side effects and all that stuff in it. Well, the homeopathic has nothing. It works with the body. It works with the person's vital force. Your vital force is within you. It's part of wanting to keep you healthy, wanting to keep you stable, wanting to keep you in balance and harmony with yourself, not only spiritually, but mentally, emotionally, and physically. You cannot say that about a pharmaceutical drug. They, for the most part, are for the physical body, although they do have drug prescriptions for mental issues and things like that. So homeopathy is known around the world and is practiced around the world. And I loved going over to Europe. I've been to Europe many times, either giving workshops and classes or going to workshops and classes with other homeopaths. And what's so nice is it doesn't matter where in Europe you live, you can go to your drugstore and you're going to find hundreds, if not 1,000 different homeopathic remedies in the pharmacy, and people use them all the time. And they are dirt cheap, they work, and they will not kill you. They won't make your life miserable. They will help you. And I can't today get into why that is. Rather, what I want to do today is just introduce you to 10 of the best ones that I like for what I call emergency medicine that are very common and are used by people around the world if they get sick or if they get injured, and they work beautifully. And I want to draw pictures, word pictures on each one of these remedies so that people kind of get a feel for it, because we have over 5,000 remedies in our global pharmacopoeia. And we fit the remedy to the person by looking at the symptoms. And if this person has those symptoms, then we give them this remedy. It's that simple. Then there's the thing about potency, and I won't get too much into that today, but we know because we're trained on this for many, many years, what potency is best for whatever thing. Let me give you a real quick little example of this. And because I'm a homeopath, I always have my little pharmacopoeia in the house here in the basement. And I happened one day, and it didn't happen. We live in Virginia now, but this happened when we were in Arizona for 30 years. I had a group of students come in, and for some reason, I had to run into the bathroom to go find or do something. And the door on this bathroom was always ajar. If you pushed it against the wall, it didn't stay there. It would come out a little bit. And Dave just never got around to fixing it. I happened to have needed something, and I bent down over the bathtub because I needed a sponge or something. And I grabbed it, and I was in a hurry, and I went and I turned and I hit my nose on the edge of that door. And I heard this crack. And I thought, oh, damn, I've broken my nose. After I thought that, I had blood gushing like a oil gusher out of my left nostril. And I mean, it was coming out like a fire hose. And I had blood all down the front of me within seconds. And so what I did is I tipped my head up and I really pinched really hard up here at the root of my nose. And I can't see where I'm going, but I go across the hall because my high dose kit was in the closet and I had to slide the door open to get to it and then get to Arnica, which is the first one, by the way, we're going to talk about here. Okay. Set the stage with some drama, right? And I went around like this and I knew where they were because if I looked down, then I was going to have all this blood everywhere. I'd never seen blood come out like that one was. And it was just spurting out like in, with every pulse. And right, this is a hemorrhage situation. This isn't good because you can lose blood on a hemorrhage really easily. So I got a 50 which is a very powerful and high potency. And it was Arnica, Montana. And what you see on your screen here right now, this is not Arnica, Montana. This is Gilsermium, but I have a picture of Arnica. Let me get it here. Okay, there's Arnica. And Arnica grows in the high alpines over in Europe. It's everywhere, but we also have it here in the United States. We have it in the Sierra Mountains, the Rocky Mountains. They are tough little customers and they sit low to the ground and they take god awful snow. You have 5 feet over it during the winter, but it pops back. It is so strong and it comes back, and this is what it looks like. Now, there's an interesting thing with this that, and again, you have to know your chemistry and your biology and your botany when you're a homeopath. There happens to be a bacteria that's found in the little center cluster there, okay, because this is what they call a composite flower. And that means that each one of those little yellow round things you see in the center, they're actually flowerets. They're each an individual flower in and of itself. And there happens to be a bacteria in it that if you took it, you could get very, very sick. So the way they use Arnica is either homeopathically, which is either in a sugar sucrose or a lactose powder tablet, or it could be a dilution, which means it's a tincture. And usually you don't take it as a tincture because it's not good for you. The closest that Arnica got was as an oil, and it was used on the mules and the horses during World War I. And they would rub it on the animals' outside fur of their legs and their knees because their pasterns and their knees would get very sore and tired because they're pulling cannons behind them. They're pulling artillery. And so Arnica oil is very famous for that reason. But if you're going to take it, you want to take it in either a pellet or a pill or a lactose tablet, any of those, and they're all made from sugar, but they're little tiny things. And you would think that that little tiny thing isn't going to do anything for you, but it can save a life, literally and figuratively. So I found my 50 I managed to get it unscrewed and the cap fell. I wasn't going to lean over to try and find it, let me tell you, because there had been blood all over the oak floor, which would have been a disaster. And I took the 50 and within 2 minutes, that stopped. It stopped it dead. It didn't start back up. That 50 literally closed off that fire hose of where I had the break in the capillary high up in my nose where I broke my nose. And so I had to go change stuff and everything like that. And that's just an amazing thing. And so always remember this story, because the stories you remember, even if you're in an emergency situation, you remember them. And the Arnica is good for a lot of things besides stopping bloody noses, but also stop and think about it this way. Me, I had to hit my nose on the edge of a door to really see this little plant in action. And so if you get nosebleeds, there's a lot of children that get a lot of nosebleeds. And I was one of those children too, by the way. My mother used to sit me at the sink on a stool and just told me to hang my head over the wash basin, and I would have blood coming out on kind of strings for about a half hour, and it finally would stop. Well, she wasn't a homeopath. If I had been there, it would have been, give her arnica. Okay, it'll stop immediately. But anytime you get a situation where you have bleeding, and this is why this particular plant, when it is created into a homeopathic remedy, is so wonderful. It also helps with so many other things. And what I've done is I have put in the things, kind of the major things that people around the house would want to know or understand that it was good and used for. So I've got nosebleeds, hemorrhaging blood, which is the nose story I gave you, muscle aches and pains, any kind of injury, bruises, skin injury, car accidents. And I'll tell you what, Arnica is one of the two remedies that I give for whiplash. If somebody rear ends you or you're in an auto accident or something like that, and you've got neck and spinal column issues afterwards, be looking at Arnica montana. A second one that would follow Arnica is Bellis perennis, which is called English daisy. It's a beautiful little white daisy with a yellow center, and it digs down into very, very deep injured tissue or tendon or ligament areas and pulls the shock and trauma out of it so that it can totally heal. Also, back injuries in general, you can give this after surgery remedy, never give it before, because then the surgeons are going to be using either more of whatever they sedate you with, whether it's the gas or whether it's a shot. And it is great for reducing swelling of any type. The swelling is what makes the pain because it's pressure and it's blood congealing in a given area, and it's not moving through like it's supposed to. And so it sits there, and that is where the pain comes in. But if you get the blood flowing, then the swelling goes down, and you aren't going to be taking as many pain pills as you did before. And it's also going to create and promote healing much faster as a result of that. And even I said here, Mayo Clinic, a trusted, well-known traditional medical facility, said that Arnica helps to stimulate the body's self-healing response. You can heal much faster with Arnica than without it. And I just said, traditional medicines rarely give homeopathic remedies any praise, which is true. I think they think we're going to take over the world, but that's not our mindset. Now, as a medical astrologer, I thought I would throw this in, but we're not going to talk about this too much today. But I said the primary planet is Mars and the Uranian planet is Vulcanus. And I said these two can slow blood loss in any form. So let's say if you have a transiting Mars on your sun and you have an accident, Mars is all about accidents and doing dumb things as well as smart things. Vulcanus is about hemorrhaging. It's about total loss of control of being able to stop the bleeding, like my bloody nose was. Secondary planets that may be involved, I said Saturn stops the bleeding by constriction of vein or artery closing down. And if you happen to have a transit of Mars and a transit of Saturn, and if transiting Saturn happens to be on your moon and the transiting Mars happens to be on your sun, you have the accident. But with Saturn being in this mix, it means that it's going to close down and constrict the vein or the artery to slow the amount of blood loss. And that's really important. So that's all I want to say about that. And I gave you the example. I had a family member just last week call me, one of my cousins, and she says, I've had a nosebleed for 45 minutes. And I put in parentheses here, that's way too long, FYI. Okay. Nobody should be having a nosebleed that goes 45 minutes. Something else is wrong. And I said, are you on a blood thinner? And she said, well, yes, I am. And I said, well, how long have you been on the blood thinner? Because I didn't even know that. And she said, well, I've been on it for 6 months. So I knew it wasn't the blood thinner that was causing the problem, because she would have been having nosebleeds a lot often if she was getting too much of that traditional medication into her bloodstream. So I said, okay. I said, I had bought her 50 remedy homeopathic kit, and I'll show it to you here in a minute, several months ago. And one of the remedies you'll always find in a family kit like this is Arnica montana. And it was a 30C kit. It's rather low dose, okay, but it's strong enough for most things that'll happen around your house. And so I told her to take one pellet of the Arnica, put it into her mouth, on her tongue or under her tongue and let it melt away. Do not drink water to flush the pellet down your gullet to your stomach, okay? The reason why you don't do that, just let it sit in your mouth and let it melt down in its sugar form. It's going to go directly into the tissues of your cheeks, all right? And then that's going to go directly through 3 layers of skin, hit the capillary beds, and it's going to go into the bloodstream immediately. And you get a very swift reaction as a consequence. But if you unfortunately forget, this is not a pill, this is not a traditional medical pharmacy pill, okay? But if you think it is and you take water and gulp it down into your stomach, well, the pellet will go down there and it will melt into the stomach. But the problem is that the stomach has so many different acids and chemicals in it to break food down. It will also break down the remedy and destroy part of it, or take away the power that it used to have. It's now dead on arrival. So you never ever take it with water. Just let it sit there and melt. And it always tastes good. It's always made out of a sugar foundation base. And it's so small, you might taste a little bit of it, but that's it. But there's no bad taste to it, too. That's really good. You can't say that about traditional pharmacy medications. But I have also put in here, and by the way, Oak, I believe I gave you the handout for this talk, right? You've got it?
You did.
Yeah, it's a PDF. This and everything that you see here is on that PDF. And you'll also see that there's a URL here. If you want a family kit, they've got several types. And you can go over there to their website and take a look at it. But the one that I got my cousin was a 50 remedy 30C kit. Now that was $169. And I know a lot of people, that's a lot of money. But let me tell you this, that particular kit may save a life. And for $169, I think it's well worth it, or to save up for it, or have somebody that has more money and they love you and they ask you, well, what do you want for your birthday? Or what do you want for Christmas? Buy them a kit. That's what I do. I end up getting kits to a lot of people because I know what they can do for you. And all of the remedies that I'm going to talk about here today are usually in those kits anyway. So a kit has 50 glass vials. They're half dram size. They're little small sizes, and they have little tiny little white pills and pellets in them. And you're thinking, well, what can they do? They don't look like they can do anything. They can do everything. And, it's show and tell time. So the next time you get a nosebleed or you bang yourself and you've got a big purple and blue bruise somewhere, take an Arnica 30C. And in her case, I had her take it every 5 minutes, 1 pellet. And after 2 doses, this 45-minute nosebleed stopped immediately. So in 10 minutes, it stopped it. And it wasn't running like my gushing nosebleed, all right? It was just stringy stuff coming out and leaking. So she didn't lose a quart of blood or a pint of blood or anything like that. So this is the 50 Remedy 30C Potency Kit. It's from Washington Homeopathic Products. And I never leave home without mine. Anywhere I travel, I throw it in a glove box. This thing can take the heat, it can take the cold. We have homeopaths who believe that if this goes through an X-ray machine, that it takes the energy away. I don't believe that. I have 2 kits. I have a high dose kit that is in a little fish box about this big. And the other one is a medium kit of 200C. The other one's 1M, 10M, and 50M. Because I go a lot of places, or I used to go a lot of places where there wasn't any kind of medical help I was going to get if something happened. And that's where it can save your life. But this is what one of the kits looks like. And this is the one that costs $169. And I do not get any money off from telling people about this. I'm not being paid to do this. This is just happens to be one of the best kits and one of the best pharmacists we have in the United States. And their stuff is good to go. But you can go over to their website and you can go snoop around and check it out. So the next one I want to talk about is Allium cepa, which is onion. And this is a beautiful globular type of onion flower. It looks like it's a huge bouquet ready to go to a wedding. So there's Allium cepa. Okay, so what would you use this for? We use it for coughs, for conjunctivitis, which is a redness that gets in the eyes, that's itchy. Colds of some types. And the colds that I'm talking about, there's usually a constant, it's like your nose or your eyes are constantly running with this fine, thin, sometimes sticky fluid out of your nose, and it's like tears coming out of your eyes, literally. And there's also a lot of sneezing. The cough is dry, and it's from the larynx area. It's right here in this area of your throat. And also people who need allium cepa, if they have a really awful cold, is they get hoarse. So there's hoarseness with it. And the pains feel like needles shooting along the lines of the nerves. And that's a very strong symptom of this if you need this particular remedy for your cold. And it's fabulous for allergies, but not necessarily all allergies. So we're going to kind of parse those. You have allium sepia for what I would call ragweed allergies, your normal springtime allergies or your fall allergies where you got a runny nose, you're sneezing, you're coughing. The big thing with allium cepa is that your nose runs like a faucet or your eyes run like a faucet. It's constant. It's terrible. And that would force me to go to the kit to get the allium cepa and take 130C and see if it won't stop it. And you'll see it reducing and slowing down. And you may have to take a 30C maybe once an hour, maybe once every couple hours. It depends upon the person.
How would this be different from like eating an onion?
Because it's potentized and because there's no substance left in a 30C. In other words, you're getting the energy of the vegetable. In this case, it's the onion. Okay. But you are getting it at the quantum physics level. And it's gone beyond molecular, it's submolecular. And when that goes into the body, the vital force, that which keeps you healthy, okay, recognizes it instantly. It says, okay, go to work. And it does. And it goes to all of the symptoms that you have and stops them and clears them up. And they quit.
Wow, so cool.
Oh, it is. Oh, misery. When you have a bad cold, you're so miserable. But if you have these types of symptoms, then allium cepa is what you want to use. All right, so I said there's other remedies for allergies. One is euphrasia, which is watery eyes, itchy eyes, and it's nonstop. The one that I'm more interested in is the allergies that can be life-threatening, where there's swelling of the face, swelling of the tongue and throat. That's known as anaphylaxis. And that means that you can die from it because your throat can swell shut and you can't breathe and you die. You suffocate. That's what anaphylaxis means. And there are a couple of really great remedies for this. For instance, like I have problems with sulfa drugs. And if I take any traditional medication for sulfa, I get anaphylactic, which means I'm getting all of the symptoms that are life-threatening. And I learned a long time ago that one of the best is Apis mellifica, which is honeybee. And if you are sensitive to drugs or sensitive to certain foods, like for instance, if a child has a peanut allergy and he or she eats peanuts or it's in something that nobody knew about, then they go anaphylactic. And you have to immediately either give them the pen that they use, which has adrenaline in it, to stop the anaphylactic reaction. But if you don't have, one of those pens, which costs hundreds of dollars, the thing that you want to keep on hand is Apis mellifica, and you would keep it at a high dose, like 1 m or a 10 m or 50 m. And it can either stop or slow down the symptoms. And I said, for myself, I always have Benadryl, which is a traditional medicine, if you will, with me at all times. And so I always carry an Apis mellifica 10 m on me. If I happen to feel the symptoms come on, then I'll take one pellet and let it melt in my mouth. And I also take 2 Benadryl, and I'm off to the closest ER I can find in case it is so bad that I'm really going to need resuscitation by humans. But I can guarantee you that Apis mellifica will give you the time to get the help that you need. It doesn't mean you don't get help. It means you go to ER immediately. You just don't pass go and take off and get there. And as soon as you come in that door, you tell them you're anaphylactic. And they have a crash cart that is specific for anaphylactic issues for people. And they have a team that they have trained that knows what to do in case you pass out and your throat's closing up, and they know how to rescue you from actually dying. So always go to the ER if you have anaphylaxis reaction. But Apis mellifica 10M. Just keep it in your car. These are little tiny pellets, so you can put them in a Ziploc bag or something like that and carry them around in your purse or your wallet, and always have the Benadryl. And anytime you get an anaphylactic reaction, I take 2 Benadryl. I don't do 1 because I want to hit that and hit it hard and stop it. And another story. So the primary planet with Allium cepa is the moon, which rules over mucus, runny tears from the eyes, or any orifice of your body. And Mars, which is the inflammation and the swelling of the tissue, and it's minor swelling, but your nose clogs up, you sound stuffy and everything like that. It's that type of swelling. Runny eyes, nosebleeds, or nose discharge. And those are 2 planets that are usually involved in most common allergies that you get in the spring and the fall. The secondary planet is Neptune, which is your immune system, because if we're allergic to spring and fall types of allergies, it means that our immune system isn't 100%. It means that it's lower than it should be, and it's leaving you open to all of these allergic symptoms. So that's it for our onion friend. You'll never look at an onion again the same, will you? Okay, this is a wonderful remedy. It's chamomile. And I put up there, it's a parent's godsend, and they will consider it a miracle. And I'll tell you why. But it's a beautiful little daisy-like flower, grows all over the world. This is one of the remedies that parents always want to have in the house. It's chamomile. It's for baby colic. If you've ever had a baby with colic, let me tell you, this will stop it in 5 or 10 minutes. It's just incredible. And it helps the baby besides helping the parents. It's also for diaper rash, for earaches, for pain, teething. And the kids, the babies that need this are usually there's an angry crying that goes with it. And it's usually the newborns that will keep you up both at night. They just keep crying for hours. And you want to give pellets, 1 pellet of chamomile in a 1/4 cup of water. And I said, allow it to dissolve. It'll probably take about 10 minutes. You can stir it with a little spoon. And then you give the baby 1/2 of a teaspoon into her or his mouth. And the miracle of miracles, the symptoms stop in about 5 minutes, maybe 10 at the most. And if they start back up, another 1/2 a teaspoon of water with the remedy in the baby's mouth. And I said, usually a 30C is only available and a good potency to give a child the relief from his or her symptoms. And they go to sleep. And God, the parents just fall dead asleep in their bed. But the child is just so fatigued and crying and will not stop crying. They also, a chamomile child gets very angry, very irritated, and will hit out at you. I don't care what their age is, whether it's 2 months old or a year old or 3 years old. They get very angry and very upset. And at their worst, they will bite someone. So, I mean, if you have somebody like that, then you know that you should have chamomile on hand. And I said, a diaper rash is often helped with calendula salve, which is usually available at any homeopathic pharmacy. And I said, you have the Washington Pharmacy URL in this slideshow. And I said, or a good health food store. And I says, it does wonders, miracles for this burning, chapping redness, and that really pains the baby. And again, they'll keep you up at night because of that. So buy a tin of the sap. You'll never be sorry, or a jar. And I always recommend calendula for diaper rashes, and it alone will cure it. But you can also use 1 dose of chamomile, as we just spoke about. So the primary planet for chamomile is Jupiter, because Jupiter just goes overboard on everything. It has no boundaries to stop it or to channel it or anything like that. It's just like it's all over the place. And chamomile children, when they are sick, are the most miserable little kids to be around. And part of it is that they're just so sensitive to pain, they can't stand it. And so they just cry and they hit and they strike out and they get angry and they have temper tantrums. And if you just give them a little bit of chamomile in a teaspoon, it will work miracles for the baby or for the young child and the parents. And the secondary planet from a medical astrology viewpoint is Mars and Volcanus, which is the temper tantrums, the rashes, the impatience, the frustrations, skin redness, inflammation, and anger, a lot of it. So just remember those keynotes and you'll be fine. And by the way, all of these remedies so far that I've talked about, you can usually get at a good health food store too. You can call up the health food store and ask if they carry any homeopathic remedies, and many of them do. Find out if they have Chamomile 30C, or it may be Chamomile 12X or something like that. Either one will work. Or you can buy the kit, which is what I really advise. Okay, here's Magnesia Phosphorica. This is for women, the reproductive area, the menstrual cramping. And the mineral is magnesite, and it addresses menstrual cramps, colic, pain, also teething in younger children, any kind of toothache, whether you're young or old, doesn't matter. And if you have violent spasmodic cramping, usually in the feet or legs, this is a great one. Magphos is wonderful for restless leg syndrome. Trust me on this. It is wonderful. So any kind of neuritis or nerve pain, sciatica pain, anybody who has sciatica, think about Magphos. And this is for people who are super sensitive to this type of pain too. Women get abdominal bloating when they're having their menstrual cycle, and they can literally bend double with pain. And a heating pad or a very warm, moist cloth across the area helps greatly, plus taking the remedy. And people who are very sensitive to the least amount of pain, they are exhausted by it. And these are the types of people who should be thinking about utilizing this amazing remedy. The pain that a Magphos person gets is spasmodic, and it makes a person super irritable, tense, and nervous. They talk constantly about their pain, and they are hypersensitive about everything. No matter what you say, it's going to be wrong, okay? That's how it is with a Magphos person. And they're probably blaming you for it anyway. And in baby colic situations, if chamomile doesn't work, then Magphos is the go-to remedy to ameliorate colic completely. This is so important. Colic and babies and Magphos. If chamomile doesn't stop it in its tracks, just grab the Magphos and make it up in that little amount of water with a little teaspoon after the pellet has been dissolved, and give a half a teaspoon, and it will help this child so much, and it will also help the parents. So primary planet for Magphos is Neptune, Poseidon, and Poseidon is Uranian planet. And I said because they are both super sensitive to everything. Literally they are, especially pain. So if you have a strong Neptune in your chart, pain is not your friend at all. It just takes a little bit and it's like a major blow up. So secondary planet is Venus because it rules the menstrual cycle and all of women's maladies that come with the reproductive area of their body. It is also super sensitive to pain. And there's a picture of magnesite here down at the bottom. It's just a little white rock. That's it. It's a mineral. Okay. Ignatia Amara. This is for grief and depression. It's for people who are nervous and excitable by nature. They work in a rapid manner. They can't sit still. They've got to be moving around doing something. And sudden unexpected grief, also trauma or shock, or a disappointment can show outwardly in many different forms with an Ignatia person. There may be hysteria. There may be weeping or sighing. I had a friend who was always sighing, but usually the sighing came when it was something that was stressful to them. And then you go, oh, and so you get a sighing kind of person, you know that this remedy is going to work on them. Also, they can be shocked into silence. They may have seen something that shocked them and they stopped talking. They stopped communicating with people for a long time. And this can be an adult, this can be a child, it can be a baby. Doesn't matter. They also can have a suppressed emotional reaction to the trauma or the shock, and it can appear as physical spasms. Spasms of the fingers, okay, cramping, also the toes, the feet. That's what they're talking about here. Also, they may have an unpredictable reaction to whatever the bad news is, or it catches them off guard. Anything like that, an Ignatia person is far more super sensitive to it than most people. So it goes deeper into them and they have a more deep reaction to it as a consequence. And interestingly enough, Ignatia people either show their grief really well or they swallow it, and you would never know that this person was carrying grief like a ton of rocks on their shoulders, and it just sits there. It doesn't get worked through like it's supposed to. Better out than in. They don't do that. They just hold on to it. And I said the worst reaction is the person who suppresses their emotions and refuses to come to term with them. And that causes depression long term. It could be the loss of your spouse. It could be a loss of your fur baby. It could be the loss of something that you loved very much. And it suddenly, in a shocking or traumatic way, was taken away from you, or they suddenly died. The grief doesn't always come bubbling up in an Ignatia person. They can sit on it and they can sit on it for decades. But the problem is, if you don't work through your emotional, whatever you're feeling because of the shock or trauma, then it goes into the depression phase. And this type of person is stoic and appears not to let any of the above bother them at all. They bury their reactions, their grief, their shock, their trauma. And I said, it's not good in the long run because you can run and hide, but you can't outrun it, and it's going to get you anyway. And the first big sign is depression, whether it's mild depression, medium depression, or it's severe depression. The more severe it is, the longer and older it is. That's how you can tell. And Ignatia people, they are super sensitive by nature. So you have to be very kind and speak quietly with these people and be very gentle with them. They're so locked up. And if you take this remedy, it can help release all of this and they can get on with their life. They can actually move through the grieving process instead of it getting locked up or sopped up somewhere. So the primary planet for Ignatia is Moon and Saturn, and the secondary planet is Jupiter and Volcanus. Okay, Nux vomica. This is poison nut tree, and this is a beautiful botanical illustration of it. They call Nux vomica the strychnine tree. And yes, it's a poison that will deal with the poison, like cures like. This is a homeopathic watchword. What can kill you can also save your life, so to speak. So Nux has some very special attributes that I like in it. The nut itself is orange, and you can see it down here in the lower right-hand corner. This is a black and white, unfortunately. I couldn't find a good color one of it, but it's the color orange is the nut itself, the outside of the nut. And that orange is the color of the sacral chakra, which is below your belly button and your abdominal area. And this is the area, if you ask to define the chakra, this one is about learning how to get along with people and live with people, or to work in a partnership or with a group of people, rather than it's you alone out there in the world. And so there's a lot of people interaction with a Nux type person. And believe me, they're easy to spot. And we'll get into that in a minute. It's useful for people from effects such as too much mental stimulation. They also will use drugs, either recreational or prescription. And these are the people that get in trouble with hydrocodone, which is a medication that is often used for pain. And they can't get off of it once they get on it. They also like lots of stimulants and or alcohol. They very frequently will smoke cigarettes or vaping. Some Nux people have big time drug issues, but they do have an addictive nature. Now, this could be an addiction to salt. It could be an addiction to sugar. Ring a bell? So it doesn't have to be necessarily you're taking recreational drugs or prescription drugs. It could be food that becomes your addiction. On the dark end of Nux, they can become physically violent and abusive, and they can also be abusive toward their spouse and the children. And think of them at their worst as a rabid wolverine. I don't know if too many of you know what a wolverine is, but I suggest strongly that you go look it up online. I've been around wolverines, and I can tell you it's a perfect parallel to a Nux person who is not at their best. Let's just put it that way. Because they're demanding, they're arrogant, they're know-it-alls. They're the field commander who thinks that knows it all, and they don't. So their nervous system is completely overactivated, and so are they. And they have a lot of digestive ailments, heartburn, spasms, food poisoning, hiccups, violent nausea or vomiting. They also have severe constipation, which is no fun, and gastric ulcers. And I said here, the old saying is don't poke a bear applies here. They can be abusive on every level with another person or animal, taking out anger, which is their main modus operandi. And they will take it out on an animal as well as a human. And I said, in severe cases, violence in mind and body, and the intensity of all expressions of it. They're a know-it-all when really they are not. And I said, their bite is far worse than their bark. Now, we keep nuts around the house because Dave gets some digestive issues and it seems to settle it. The only time he gets digestive issues usually is when I have said something or we get into an argument and it backs up in his digestive system is where he's got this. And the Nux immediately takes it away. And then we're back to our calm, peaceful type of life. But a Nux person is easy to spot a mile away. And there's a lot of usefulness for Nux for people who have drug issues, drug relapses. They treat these types of things over in Europe and other homeopathic countries very differently than they do here in the US. And they use homeopathic remedies for them, not necessarily traditional medical drugs, although it can be both. So the primary planet for Nux is Mars, Volcanus, and Zeus, and these are your warrior planets. They're always at war. Their body is at war. They're at war with somebody. The secondary planet is Jupiter and Kronos, another Uranian planet. Jupiter is not the good guy of all of the planets. Jupiter is that if a little is good, then a lot is better. And you can apply that to addictiveness just as well. So this is why Jupiter is in the mix with this particular remedy. Okay, sulfur. It's a mineral crystal, and you can see a really nice picture of it. There's a lot of kids, a lot of families, a lot of people who have skin problems, and this is one that I keep around. And we also use it on our dog or dog that has a hot spot. You can give them a 30C sulfur and it'll cure it. You can also use calendula salve, on the area and rub it in every day, and it will go away. It will heal it. So that's one for your puppies. Anyway, sulfur is good for eczema, psoriasis, and this is a good one, herpes. I know a lot of people that get herpes, itching, and redness of the skin. And I said these people with a skin problem will scratch until it bleeds. Looking at a sulfur type person, they are an arrogant, egocentric personality. They think they know more than anyone else, and they would never admit that they could be wrong or deficient in information they're handing out, whether those people ask for it or not. And it works on all anatomical systems of the body. And it's really, from a homeopathic standpoint, it's considered a go-to remedy if nothing else works. If no remedy that you've picked has helped your set of symptoms, think of sulfur. It has an incredible ability that very few constitutional remedies have. There's also a burning, if you want to tell who's a sulfur person, they have burning sensations at the top of their head and the bottom of their feet. And they always worse feeling from heat. They'll be the ones throwing off the covers. They'll be the ones opening the windows in winter because it's too damned hot in the room that where they're at. Okay, so they are worse heat for sure. And they also feel worse if they're washing themselves. There is a part of some sulfur people, they look like they may be sitting on the sidewalk panhandling. This is a sulfur kind of person. Hobos back during the 1930s and 40s, a lot of them were sulfur because they couldn't get a bath or a shower every day. They could go weeks, a month without ever having to wash themselves. Sulfurs don't mind that. And they also will wear the same old clothes over and over again. They don't want the latest designer anything. And they're very common sensed. And they wear things out and it'll have holes in it. That's a sulfur. And sulfur works on all of the anatomical systems of the body. And that's a really, really important thing. So if you're having problems and you don't know what to do, try 30C sulfur, see if you don't get some relief from the symptoms. They also crave fresh air. And this is why I say they're the ones that throw the window open in the middle of winter, not only to get cool, but also to get fresh air. And they prefer cooler weather and they're better sweating. They want warm, dry weather. They never live in the south of the US, believe me, because it's too humid. They hate humidity. Now, sulfurs also get ear infections, styes, and tumors, eczema across the eyelids, the upper eyelids. Other more serious eye issues, retinal issues, fall under sulfur's domain. And for the men, the older men, chronic prostate problems. Boy, I'll tell you what, if somebody's told me if I was a man that my prostate is too swollen and they need to take it out, the first thing I would be doing is going to a homeopath and asking them if sulfur won't help reduce how large and swollen the prostates become, and they can get it down to its normal size so you don't have to have the surgery, which I've seen that work. Okay, stooping posture. A lot of sulfur people have their heads down and their shoulders are drooping and a bit forward. They don't stand up straight all the time, like someone who's in the military, your shoulders thrown back, your chin's up, and you walk straight and your spine straight. That's not necessarily true of sulfur people. And so that's a key to look for in somebody. And you may have met people like this. There's also back pain, a lot of back pain, and standing, they're worse. They have to sit down or lay down. They have burning sensations of hands and feet at the night. They have chronic insomnia and many digestive issues, and especially abdominal issues. So they have the things that they can get, but there's also, because sulfur is such a great constitutional remedy, it can very often help in times when you just can't seem to find the right remedy. Give the 30C sulfur and see if that helps. So primary planet is Saturn. Saturn rules the skin of the body. And Kronos is a Uranian planet, and Cronoses are like sulfurs. I think they know it all. That's another webinar for another day. Secondary planet is Jupiter because, again, the sulfur, like the Nux vomica, they think they know it all. They have a grasp of everything, and they won't listen to what you have to say because they think they know more about it than you do. Secondary planet is also Poseidon, which is Uranian. These types of sulfur people, you find them in the library, you find them in science, you find them in scientific laboratories, and that's where they like to work. Okay, here's another. This one can save lives. This is aconitum napellus. Most homeopaths refer to it as aconite. We shorten everything. And it's for shock and trauma remedy. I'm an EMT, so I can tell you that people can and do die from shock. And the biggest thing that kills them is their blood pressure drops, and then their heart cavitates and they die of a heart attack. That's what shock can do to you. And shock is something that what might shock Oak might not shock me, or vice versa. So shock is very pertinent to the person and how they deal with it. Now, this is a remedy to stop the shock, to stop the blood pressure drop, to stop even the possibility of having a heart attack because of that. This is one of the most life-saving remedies that I know of besides Arnica. Arnica stops hemorrhages, but aconitum napellus reaches deeply into areas that Arnica can't go, which is, what does trauma do to you emotionally? Also, what does it do to you spiritually? What does it do to you in your mind? Okay. And the physical outcome of that is blood pressure drop, heart attack, dead. So this is one that you want to keep around all the time. Now, these are beautiful little flowers. These are monkshood. Aconitum napellus is its official Latin name, but it's called monkshood. And you can see it's like you have a face and you have a helmet over the head there. You can see it, okay? And this is one of the remedies that's really good for concussions and for any kind of head, skull, brain damage is monkshood. And I said, this is the remedy for shock, trauma, and fright. And I said, sadly, most people don't understand the underbelly and the depth of shock, which we just talked about. And I said, you may think you are over it, but you really aren't. And I said, you just conveniently buried it and suppressed it. And I said, but it will come back in a form of a physical issue or perhaps an emotional or mental one. And I said, we all have this potential to do this. This is not a one-off. And I said, most families are mildly to badly dysfunctional. And between being born to the age of 18, you are a prisoner in your own family and parents, so to speak. And I said, it's simply a question of what happened in that time frame. Something did. I haven't met a person yet who hasn't had some life-changing shock or trauma in that frame of time. And if it's not addressed, it will haunt you the rest of your life, but it'll do more than that. I always say that it's better out than in. And I said, when it's in, it can scar us, limit us, hurt us on some or all levels of our being. And I said, fear of death and dying is one of the big aconite symptoms. If this child is afraid they're going to die, or this woman or this man have a very powerful response to, they fear dying, that is an aconite napellus person. It's also good in flu, infections, and colds. And I said they have a strong residual anxiety and a fear that culminate in anxiety or panic attacks. This is the remedy for these conditions, guaranteed. And I said, these are signs outwardly of what happened inwardly to you at an earlier age. And I said, violent, sudden illnesses come on where you can use aconite to get through it, or a sudden infection or a sudden trauma. Aconitum is used in convulsions and epilepsy. And if they get a fever, they get a sudden high fever out of the blue. They can be 98.6 1 minute and the next they're 104. Just like that. I've seen it. And that's when you want to give them the aconite. Also, people who have an infection. Let's talk about COVID. Let's talk about the long haulers. This one sentence applies to them. Never well since an infection. I wish I could get to all the long haulers and say, find a homeopath. And I think I've got some information on the National Center for Homeopathy. They have a directory back in Boston, I believe it is. And if I can't find it, I will get it to Oak and he will send it out to you if you want it. The thing is that you need a homeopath if you have an infection that you've never been well since, because that means that it's dug in, and it really does take a well-trained homeopath to suss out everything to figure out, okay, what have I got here? Do I have multiple layers? Are we going to have multiple remedies? And who comes first, second, and third? Long haulers should get to a homeopath, and I am sure at some point, and if you go with a homeopath to deal with long haul COVID, that aconite's going to be in there somewhere. It'll be one of the layers. So the primary planet for aconite is Mercury, because it's about the nervous system, and Mercury rules the nervous system. And Apollon, which is a Uranian planet. The secondary planet is Uranus, which means, again, your central nervous system and your peripheral nervous system both fall under aconite. And if you ever have any issues like that, you should be taking the aconite first, because it can start lifting the layer off instead of letting it come down and trickle down through you and then go out into the layers in the different systems. Shock can hit any system in your body. And if you don't get rid of it and use the remedy to get it out, then it's going to start working on that particular system in your body, and then you'll get symptoms from it. All right. Why do people get stomach ulcers? Think about that. Why do people have IBS? All right. Irritable bowel syndrome. There's reasons for all these. They're all emotional. And aconite is a good place to start. And that's one of the first things I asked when I had my time doing remedies for people, that I would always say, has there been any shock or trauma in your life from the time that you were born? But don't forget to ask also, did your mother, when she was carrying you, did she have some kind of shock or trauma? Because you know what? It's passed on to the fetus. And after you're born, that is still carried in you too. This is the old familial genetic thing in part that's happening. But aconitum napellus can help get you out of that cellar and start getting rid of that trauma and that energy that you were slapped with in utero, or if you happen to be a 1 or 2 year old baby and something terrible traumatic happens in the house, the baby's going to absorb it too. So it's a really, really, really important remedy in so many ways. So the next one is Gilsermium supervirens, and it's life instead of death from an epidemic virus source. I have a wonderful story to tell you about Gilsermium. In 1918, World War I, we had the Spanish flu epidemic hit, and it started in the United States. My grandmother, Inez, was a child in Canton, Ohio, and caught the Spanish flu and was in the throes of dying, like 22 million other people would from around the world because of this virus. And luckily, her mother called their local homeopathic doctor, who arrived in his horse and buggy out to their farm and gave my grandmother 1 dose of Gilsermium. And the next day, she was 80% better and survived when so many others in the USA died from it. And by the way, 500,000 people in the United States died from Spanish flu. And they did a study on the homeopaths who were fighting this epidemic versus the traditional medical AMA type doctors. If I recall correctly, it's something like 85% of the people who were given a homeopathic remedy, and Gilsermium was one of the remedies that was used, they lived. And only 35% of the people who had a traditional medical doctor, the AMA, that 35% lived, but the rest died. So I had the DNA of this virus in my genes. I was, her granddaughter. And then, of course, when COVID came along, guess who contracted it? I did. And I took Gilsermium and I lived just like she did. And I said, isn't this interesting, her story? So if you don't have any kind of flu remedy, please get Gilsermium and keep it on hand. It literally could save a life or lighten the attack of the virus that you get from even a flu. This is a great flu remedy, never mind epidemics, okay? This is my go-to #1 flu remedy. And I said, if you have any of those, just grab the Gilsermium and start taking it. And I said, Gilsermium is a southern vine. It's a beautiful yellow flower and it smells so sweet and so beautiful. And did you know that it's highly poisonous? It takes a poison to kill a poison. And if you take it as a homeopathic remedy, the poison is not there. So don't worry about it. You're not going to die from it. You'll live because of it. And I said, I always keep it in your medicine chest. And I said, homeopathic remedies do not weaken with age because they're using the energy, and energy cannot be destroyed. And I said, there's no crude substance in any homeopathic remedy that is 30C or above. I said, it is a pure expression of the energy of the plant or whatever the substance is that is used to make that remedy. And here again, I said it is also indicated in meningitis and neurological conditions for people who have a very low state of health. And I said, I think about COVID long haulers and wish each of them could connect with a homeopath and ask if they can take Gilsermium to short circuit their symptoms and get on a path toward wellness instead. This is another one for the long haulers. So the primary planet is Neptune, which rules the entire immune system, but it also rules over all bacteria and all virus. And Poseidon, Uranian, also same. Secondary planet is Pluto, which is the god of transformation, with Poseidon, which again, you're getting epidemic kinds of energy from Poseidon and from Neptune and Pluto. All three of these are almost always indicated in any epidemic. They're in the chart, they are active, and that's when it is possible that you could contract one of them. It's always good to know a medical astrologer too. Okay, so I said we're going to continue with Gilsermium because it has a lot of very useful tools in its bag that you can use. And I said no matter what kind of viral or bacterial type of situation you get in, flus are always a virus, all right? Back it up with Gilsermium as your go-to remedy. And I said also to talk to your doctor about whatever he or she wants to prescribe for you or not. And I said, homeopathic remedies work just fine with traditional medicine. They work hand in hand. It doesn't counteract anything that the traditional medical drug is doing. And I said, besides handling viral flu, which is getting stronger and stronger nowadays, we're also going to be looking at other epidemic viruses coming along shortly, other than COVID. And I said, you need this remedy around, so please get it. And I said earlier, I gave you a URL for the Washington Homeopathic Pharmacy. They have the 50 remedy family kit. They have Gilsermium in it. And I said, if you cannot afford it, buy a bottle of Gilsermium and keep it in your medicine cabinet. Always have that one on hand. And I said my suggestion would also to have Gilsermium 1M and 10M on hand in your medicine cabinet And I said, a half-dram bottle is fine with pellets for each of them. I said, it can stop a person from having to go to the hospital or dying. I said, it would be wise to get a homeopath nearest to you. Oh, good. This is it here. I said, they can prescribe and will know what potency to give you and also what remedy that you need. And I said, in order to find out if you have a homeopath near you here in the United States or in Canada, the National Center for Homeopathy, which is based back in Boston, Massachusetts, they have a directory of homeopaths in both countries. So if you're interested in this type of medicine, or to get more information or more training, and you'll learn a lot more about it, I strongly suggest that you go over there and look at it. It's a great place and they do a great job. Okay, now here's the signs that you need for this remedy. The influenza or flu or cold may come upon you very slowly, days. There's two types of virus or bacteria. They either hit very fast and swiftly, within the first 24 hours, or it's 2 or 3 days before it's even starting to get up there and you start getting symptoms from it. People who can really use Gilsermium, their face may look what we call dull, droopy, and dumb, which means you are so sick that you cannot think straight. And I said, your eyelids may be drooped or half masked type of eyelids. Okay, it looks like you're going to fall asleep. The face may look droopy and you have absolutely no energy and every movement is work, and then exhaustion overtakes you and you just want to lay quietly, eyes closed, not move. You don't want to talk to anybody. You want to be left alone. You will sleep a lot. And I said, if you have a fever, you will sleep long and deeply. There's absolutely no energy when you get hit with something. And I said, there is a heaviness to your entire body. And it takes all your energy just to lift your hand, much less walk anywhere from one room to the other. That looks like Mount Everest to them. And I said, dizziness may also occur when you sit up or try to walk at first. So just be watching for that one. And I said, you may feel like you got walloped alongside the head, only it's usually a high fever that takes you down. I said, your face may turn red, so don't be alarmed. A lot of people whose faces get red, there's an interesting little thing here. With chamomile, you get either a red spot and a white spot on each cheek. And if you get aconite, the face is a dull red. A Gilsermium person has a bright red face. You just can't miss it, okay? They look like they came out of a steam room that they were in too long, to kind of give you a feel for it here. All right, your mind will not work for you either. And this is where the dumb comes in, okay? You can't think for the right word. You feel like someone stole your brain. Talking is not what you want to do. It's the last thing you want to do. Dull aching throughout your body, especially your back, your spinal column. And I said your joints are going to ache off and on. Fever creates chill with aching and weakness mixed with heat and alternating heat and chill, usually up and down your back. And that's when you know you need Gilsermium. And I said, without Gilsermium to help you with these symptoms, your recovery is going to be long and slow. And again, this reminds me of the COVID long haulers. They were never well since. And this is also Gilsermium's power is to pull people out of this languaging mode or state and force the virus to complete its cycle within you and then be gone for good. Most people don't know this, but viruses don't necessarily run their entire cycle. And this is why people will come back and get the same symptoms over and over again. It'll go away for a while, then it'll come back. It'll go away and it'll come back. That's a Gilsermium person, and that is the remedy you ought to be taking to stop this and to break it and to force the virus out of your body totally and completely. Okay, I think this is the last one. Zincum metallicum. That's zinc, this little kind of silver gray stone. It's a mineral. Okay, zinc forms in a very hot atmosphere, hydrothermals. You can think of like volcanoes and that type of thing, where they have hydrothermal pools where the fluids are generated within the earth. These fluids may flow along a subsurface fracture where other minerals may precipitate and make vein deposits of zinc. All right, this is what it is. It usually occurs in limestone types, and that's sedimentary rock, and the fluids may flow through cavities to form rich but patchy deposits of zinc. Now, this metal, from a homeopathic standpoint, is for sensitive nervous super impressionable people. The nervous system is the focus. Restless leg syndrome. There's 2 remedies here that I gave you. One was Magphos, okay, for restless leg syndrome. If that doesn't work, come over here and take Zincum metallicum. We call it Zincum or zinc mat. We shorten everything. Restless leg syndrome affects a lot of people, female and male, and it's rampant. And I said, no wonder. I said, the stress levels the last 9 years that we've gone through is just incredible, and it's never been relieved. It started with the epidemic and it's continued ever since. And I said, stress is one of the big ones for health issues that zinc met can go ahead and take and help you with. I said, one of the main areas for zinc is brain tissues, such as concussions, inflammation, such as meningitis, or encephalitis. This is swelling of the brain. It'll kill you. I said, right now we have equine encephalitis in 5 states as of September 2nd, 2024. And I said, 1 man has died from it. And I keep asking myself this question: what if we could have given him this remedy, zinc met? Would he have survived? I said, we'll never know. But I said, since these 5 states have the mosquito that carries it, I'd be carrying Zincum Met 30C in a 2-gram bottle, and it would be in my medicine cabinet if I lived in one of these 5 states. Zinc people are super sensitive beings. They have restless legs is a big issue, especially at night and bed. And I said, shingles can occur, convulsions. Zinc people get angry really fast. And they are nervous, they're easily startled, they are overstressed, they're restless. Certain types of asthma, whooping cough may occur. Depression, in worst case scenarios, suicidal thoughts. You get somebody that's deeply depressed or they're talking about suicide, if you've got zinc med, give it to them, but also get them to either a clinic or to a doctor who can help them with the suicide, because when a person starts talking about it, they're usually pretty close to doing it. So don't waste a minute on this one. So primary planet is Uranus, which again, Uranus rules part of the nervous system here. Zeus, which is a Uranian planet. Secondary planet is Mercury. Mercury also rules the central nervous system. Uranus rules the other type of parasympathetic nervous system. And so secondary planet is Mercury as well as Apollon. That's it. Do you have any questions that you'd like to ask, Scope? Any comments? Any reflections?
Just give me a second. I want to find if there's any questions that I have. I don't really have any questions. I thought this was really thorough, and I think it's just great because you've been working with these remedies for a really long time. So getting your top is like such an amazing treat. I feel like I have never found a resource like this in terms of just like the breakdown and just like your way of suggesting you're using these. I'm wondering if it is safe to take 2 remedies at the same time. Like, let's say that I was thinking about like, yeah, what if I ended up with a COVID infection? And I was thinking, because you said that Gilsermium for a COVID infection is what you'd recommend, but I was thinking of everything that you've mentioned before, and I was like, oh, maybe Arnica as well?
No, I wouldn't go with Arnica.
Or the Gilsermium is enough?
Yeah, the one that you might want to look at is aconite, okay? Because aconite has a lot.
Right.
I mean, if you weren't sure, I'd rather have you take both of them. But the problem is when you take 2, then you don't know which one really acted and took care of it. Because both of them might, but usually that doesn't happen. It can happen. It's rare. What you can do, and this is what I tell my clients, okay, because I have them around the world, is that usually all homeopaths will have several remedies that they're looking at for this person, okay, depending upon what they tell us as far as their symptoms go. And the first thing we want to do is get the top symptoms, the ones that are really making them miserable. And then you can go through these 10. I mean, this is only 10. Like I said, we've got a pharmacopoeia of 5,000 remedies. So this is just a bit of surface stuff, but it's serious surface stuff and it can save lives. But what you should do is, for instance, if you had the homeopathic kit and you take Gilsermium 30C, all right, and go ahead and put the pellet in your mouth, let it melt in your mouth, and go lay down for a half an hour. And usually within 1 hour of taking a remedy, you're going to know whether or not it's helping you or not. And if nothing has changed in an hour after taking a 30C, then go to your second remedy and do the same thing. That's what I would do.
Great, great. Yeah, I think that's good advice because I think that when you come across a lot of these homeopathic remedies or even flower essences, you oftentimes are like, ooh, I want that and I want that. And you get really excited. And
Yeah.
so, yeah, I think one of the things that I've had to learn is like learning how to be able to pay attention and listen to like, did the thing that I take actually work?
Right. And this is why when I created this slide program for your people, that not only did I want them to know something of what it can help as far as symptoms go, but I wanted to give you a picture, an emotional mental picture of this person too, because they go arm in arm with one another. And if you're a next person, or you're short-tempered, you're impatient, and you're also questioning everything that I tell you that you should be taking because they think they know it all. They're like sulfur people. Only sulfurs have a cranky personality too, but nobody does it better than a Nux, except maybe Platina, but that's another story for another time. But yeah, these are what I call medicine chest remedies. These I would have on hand. I would have one of everything at 30C. But you do yourself a greater favor if you could just buy the kit. And it's $169. If you have to save up for it, do it. Because the remedies in there, do you know that they're still using Samuel Hahnemann, who created homeopathy 300 years ago? They're still using his remedies and the remedies work. They're still functional. So once you buy a half a dram, you've probably got maybe 50 to 100 pellets in each half dram bottle. That'll keep you for the rest of your life because you only have to take one pellet. If you take a bunch, if you think that more is better, you're wrong. In homeopathy, it's less is better. All right, you don't have to take it every 12 hours or every 4 hours as you do a traditional medicine. You take it once and wait. And you should definitely, if that remedy is going to work for you, if it's the correct remedy for you, you're going to know it within an hour because your symptoms or some of your symptoms are going to get better.
But even something like long COVID, even just maybe one small series of Senium can really start the process of relieving yourself of all that viral load.
Okay, so long COVID is what we call a chronic condition. Okay, chronic, we have two types of conditions in medicine. One is acute and one is chronic. Acute means that whatever symptoms you have come and go within 7 days and it's done. That's what acute means. Now, it's chronic if it goes over more than 7 days, and COVID does usually go for 2 to 3 weeks in most people. It's a chronic condition. So it may need more than one remedy, okay, because COVID moves around in the body and hits different systems at different times, okay? For instance, when I got the COVID, I got so tired I could barely walk. That's Gilsermium right there. And I just took a very high dose and it wiped it out. But you can't use high doses with people in the public because they don't know when and how to use them. They're not trained to do it. And that's why you need a homeopath. That's why this directory from the National Center of Homeopathy can become so important to you, especially with people with chronic conditions, because normally they need 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 different remedies at different times because literally we're peeling off the top layer. Whatever the symptoms are on the top, that's what we give the remedy for. And as soon as they go, if it's a chronic condition, then the second layer pops up with its symptoms. Then we have to retake the person's entire case and figure out, okay, what remedy that I'm looking at that you need. And then we give you that one layer peels off. Then the third layer comes up. Then we have to completely redo and take the symptoms all over again based upon the symptoms that are showing now, not back then. Okay. It's a layered kind of thing. And it's just how the energetics of the body works. And Samuel Hahnemann figured that out 300 years ago. And like I said, homeopathy is the #2 medicine in the world. So it's something you really, really want to look into because you can get shock and trauma and stress all fall under aconitum napellus. It's one-stop shopping. It can do so many different good things for you. It isn't even funny. So it's worth looking into. And if you can only buy 1 or 2 of these homeopathic remedies, buy the ones that you're really drawn to buy and keep them in your medicine cabinet. It's better than nothing. But if you can afford that kit, that is a lifesaver for your entire family and your animals. I give homeopathic remedies to our dog when she needs them. So you can do this however, whatever your monetary status is, you can figure out from that. Okay. And it's a great birthday gift if you could give it to somebody, or a Christmas gift if you have an extra $169 going around, is to send it to somebody that probably is part of your family or a good friend or something like that. You can also look at the National Center of Homeopathy. They have a lot of wonderful articles and information on what is homeopathy, how it works, why it works, and all of the things you can do with it. It's an incredible miracle medicine. I have saved so many lives over my years, decades with these remedies. And to have a life that's going to become better, because a homeopathic remedy always boosts the immune system and helps you become stronger, not weaker. And the cost for a homeopathic remedy is a couple of bucks, maybe $3, depending upon the size of it. And here you're paying $500 for a medical traditional drug that maybe a homeopathic remedy could take care of. And you're going to save a lot of money if you're not under some kind of insurance plan. There's that too. So there's a lot of things to look at. And the National Center of Homeopathy has all this information, all of it. So if you really get interested in this, go there and snoop around and see if it rings your bell.
Wow, thank you so much.
You're
So
welcome.
much great information. This is great. I think that people need to know how to have better first aid kits,
Absolutely.
you
And
know?
not only that, it's a kit that you'll only have to buy once and you'll never have to buy it again, because, like I said, at least 100 pellets in a half-dram bottle. That's 100 times you get sick, and you can
Yeah,
use that remedy.
yeah.
What are the chances? And like I said, I have my pharmacopoeia here downstairs, and I've got remedies that are 40 years old and they work just fine. They do not get weak. They do not lose anything, because we're working at a subatomic level, or what most people would term quantum physics,
Yeah.
because there is no substance left in the remedy. It's simply the integer signature of the remedy that is in that pellet. And it's
Mhm.
specific for that plant that was used. If you make an aconitum napellus remedy, you'd be using this plant with a little helmet, purple helmet on its head, which, by the way, monkshood is a very poisonous plant. We use a lot of poisonous things, but we don't have any crude substance in them, so they can't be hurt by them.
Yeah, I think even something like this aconite remedy, it's like there's nothing that you know of in terms of like our regular first aid kits that would support with shock. You know what I mean? So I think
Right.
this is incredibly valuable
Well,
just
that's
to know
why
of.
I took the time to write out the information on the PDF handout that you have, because people can keep it in their medicine cabinet or in a drawer in the medicine in the bathroom, and they can quick look it up and see what the symptoms are and what the person's like. They'll
Mhm.
be able to know quite quickly which remedy would be best for them.
I mean, I can look at this list and think of so many times, even this aconitum for myself, like there have been times where this could have actually been very helpful. And so I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. So thank you for having me, and I hope everyone gets something useful out of it for themselves and for their family and for their animals if they have them.
Thank you.
Yep. All right.